I just got nervous right now. I was fine, and then I felt my heart kind of like ding, ding. I'm so happy to be doing this with Jack because I've been playing with Jack for about, not that way. I am a married woman after all. We've been playing together for, I don't know, a long time, 2000. And so as you can imagine, we're friends, and in 19 years, obviously you're going to go through crisis, right? Personal crisis, world crisis, all kinds of crises. We've made it. We actually had a crisis in our friendship. A
long time ago.
Yes, a long time ago. A little that we were able to navigate through. So when we were preparing for today, Jack had an idea, and then I had a different idea. I don't know if you want to tell them a little bit about that?
My idea was, we were talking about personal crises that both of us have been through. And your idea?
And my idea was going through an event. There was an event that happened in the town that I live. There was an active shooting where 3 people got killed, a 5-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 19-year-old. And so, if you live long enough, these things happen. There are earthquakes, there are shootings nowadays, there's illness. And so we're going to try to merge both of them, because seeing the divine even in that was helpful. Being able to get very, very present when something like that's happening was a miracle, but it's possible. And so that's kind of what we wanted to share with you. We wanted to share, I just feel like hope. We wanted to share hope and to let you know that even if something intense happens, there is the possibility for grace and hope and love.
Would you tell the story?
Okay. So the Garlic Festival is a yearly festival that happens, and that's been happening in my town, Gilroy, for a long time, probably 30-something years. It's a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser for all the nonprofits and schools and community organizations around the area. Everybody that lives in the town has volunteered, gone, sold something, helped in some way. And it was the last Sunday of July when I was coming home. And as I was coming through the entrance of my home, I heard a neighbor say there is an active shooting happening at the festival, at the Garlic Festival. And I was going to go on a bike ride. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to go towards the Garlic Festival. I'm going to go towards the other way. And then I thought, maybe that's not such a good idea to be, riding my bike when this is happening. And in the backyard of my house, you can see towards the park. And all of a sudden, there were helicopters, there were police cars, there were fire cars. And my husband is a police officer, so of course we turn on the police scanner, right? So then we get all this information. And I have to tell you, it was intense. For me, personally, it was super intense. I just felt like I had front row to this event. And I was a little shocked. I was a little shocked because I was born and raised in Mexico City. Mexico City is an intense city where a lot of stuff happens. And I always used to say, I'm so happy that I live in Gilroy, a safe little town, right, in California. So I could not believe this was happening. And then I remember that I started to cry. And I called a friend of mine in Colombia, and she said, I just heard about what's happening at the Garlic Festival. Communication is so quick nowadays that we can get this kind of information rather quickly. And I started to cry. And I was just telling her, I cannot believe this is happening. I just cannot believe this is happening. And a few seconds later, Will came out to the yard and said, I'm going to pick up one of our friends' friends because they were selling hats at the festival, and when they evacuated them, they just evacuated them with what they had with them, so there was no possibility for cars or purses or anything like that. They just got whatever they could. And I said, okay, I'll start making the beds. We'll start preparing to gather them. And so he went to pick them up, and maybe 15 or 20 minutes later, we had 3 people that had seen the shooting and the shooter. And it was really interesting because I was still talking to my friend when Will went to tell me that he was going to go pick them up. And I remember I was shaking. And then I remember telling my friend, you know what, I need to hang up because I need to go make up the beds because I know they're going to stay with us. And the next instance, I got very quiet. I mean, it's not like it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't on purpose. It was just quietness and presence came my way. And I started making beds. And then when they got there, of course, they were shaken, they were dirty, they were hungry, they were shocked. One of them was crying. And I just remember thinking, I need to listen. I just need to listen. I offered them wine. I mean, everybody was having wine. I was having wine. They were having wine. And I was just listening, and I was just listening. And Will started making spaghetti, and we were just enveloping these guys with love and a home. And it's amazing to me that, people say love at first sight. I have never experienced that really until that day. When these guys came through the house, I just experienced love at first sight. I just wanted to give them everything that I could so they could be calmer, to welcome them. There was a connection that I felt that was obviously beyond the time that I knew them. I got to see the oneness in that moment. And we talked to them, we offered them baths and bathrobes and socks and all kinds of things that they needed. And I was so honored and grateful to be able to be present with them. The frightened me disappeared, and the only thing that I remember was just being in service to them.
It seems to me that when we're facing a crisis, like a crisis happens, we're automatically at a fork in the road. It's not a fork in the road of analytical thought at all. It just kind of happens. Like one prong of the fork is panic, fear, or stuff in that realm. Another prong of the fork is wisdom. So we find ourselves in one of these places, and there's no right or wrong or good or bad or anything about it. It's all perfect. It's all perfect, just as it is. It's just that one of them serves us better. So if we sometimes in a crisis, people just get calm. And what happens is that they rise to the occasion and they help other people. And they are totally present while other people are in panic mode. Now, panic mode is You know, like we don't choose to be in one place or another. It just happens to us. But my heart goes out to people in panic mode. And I don't know whether, if I were facing a crisis, that I would be in panic mode, or whether I would be in wisdom mode. It just happens. But I do know that these are equal possibilities for us. And at some point, I would hope I catch on to the fact, if I'm in panic mode, I hope I catch on to the fact that I have an equal opportunity to be in wisdom mode. Whoa.
So I was in panic mode when I first heard about it. It was great to experience presence of mind a second after. And that's happened a few times in my life. I think mothers can relate to this, you know, like when your kids are choking, all of a sudden you get this presence of mind to do whatever it is you need to do to help them. And it was incredible that I didn't have to do anything. I didn't remember, you know, it's not like I was telling myself anything at that moment. I just popped personally into presence of mind. And then I noticed myself get really frightened and then get very present. Later on in the evening, one of our friends from the police department called us and told us that there was a second shooter and that he was coming our way. And I got very clear about what I was going to do. You know, this is the other thing about the presence of mind in crisis, that it is very helpful. So I sent an email to my neighbors. I said, you know, turn on the lights. We kind of gather in the second floor of our home. And I was very clear what I was going to do. So I'm just mentioning this to you because sometimes when we talk about presence of mind, we talk about a beautiful place, and it is beautiful and it is calm, but we almost talk about it as if there is the absence of common sense and intelligence, right, and wisdom and just knowing what to do. And wisdom has an element of practicality that's super helpful.
And there's also, you know, there's nothing wrong with momentary fear. Momentary fear is something that, you know, it kind of rallies our physical self for fight or flight. And when that happens, you know, it serves a purpose. The only issue is, and I'm sure Bill will talk about this later on, the only issue is when we hang on to it. And so what was meant to be a momentary thing starts taking hold in us, and our system can't take it, so it gets all stressed totally. But everybody has the opportunity to be calm, to get themselves calm, to find themselves calm in a situation like this. And it's like there's no extraneous thoughts when that happens. We are just one with the moment, present with the moment, right there. There's only three things that are going on. At least this is the way that I see it. There's three things that are going on when a crisis happens, or pretty much when anything happens. There's whatever's happening in the outside world. So in this case, a crisis like that. That's happening. That's real. Okay? Then there's what we make of it with our thinking. The meaning that we make of it for ourselves. That's what gets to us. It's not the crisis itself that gets to us, it's the meaning that we make of it for ourselves. That's what ends up affecting us more than we even realize sometimes. And then underneath all that, as Dickens so beautifully expressed this morning, is the perfect essence of who we are that remains untouched no matter what is going on, no matter what crisis is going on, no matter who we know gets killed, no matter who we know has a serious problem. That is so comforting to me that we cannot be damaged in any way, shape, or form. We can only have the illusion that we're damaged with our own thinking.
So, have you heard of Nextdoor? It's an app. It's an app, and then you sign in there, and then all your neighbors tell you, if there's anything happen up in the neighborhood. During this time, I started thinking about the shooter, and I started thinking about the mother of the shooter, the family of the shooter. And I wanted to write something about it, but I was a little afraid. I was afraid because sometimes in Nextdoor, if you've ever been there, it can get brutal, It's very intense. We had an argument about the roundabouts that they put in the town, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. But somebody put a post, and she put a beautiful post about, let's just remember that the shooter's family is also part of our community. Let's not forget about them. And what I saw Gilroy do is it came together as a town, as so many communities do, during these times where there's like an earthquake or a fire or anything. We get to see the best of the human spirit at times. There were t-shirts being sold that would, all the funding would go to the families of the victims. There were initiatives about how not to allow this to happen. And then there were town meetings. And I went to the town meetings, and it was very interesting to listen to the speakers of the town, politicians and other people that were speaking. There were people that understood what we're talking about, and then there were people that condemned the shooter as evil, and I could feel the fear of the town rising according to the different speakers. And that happened to me too. As I was listening to one speaker, I just started getting really afraid and very sad. And I'm not afraid of getting sad or afraid. But in the midst of all of that, I could feel something pushing me to see beyond that in the moment. Almost like when there's a lot of fog and you're driving, and you're trying to see what's in front of you. And I was talking to another friend of mine of the town, and she said, we're going to be praying for the family of the shooter as well. So this was quite an experience, I think probably for a couple of weeks I was up and down. I just felt very sad at times. I felt very frightened. I would call the people that we hosted at the house and say, how are you doing? There was a very special connection that I was able to see between them and us. Other people in the town expressed a lot of fear. And talk like, well, this world's going to hell. And yet, in the middle of all of that, there was so much effort to help each other. It was intense and beautiful. It gave me hope. And the most beautiful thing of the whole thing was this thing about being able to see the connection that exists amongst us all, in spite of the fact of whether we know each other or not. Like it was, like that was love at first sight. That's what it was. It was just realizing that we are connected, regardless of the language that we speak or the accent that we have. And even in the midst of that, love shows up.
Shall we move on to personal crisis?
Yes. We're going to talk about all kinds of crises this evening.
We've been friends for a long time, and so there are things that we've helped each other out with over the years. Now, this one time, I was married for 36 years, and I did something very unwise. I was not operating from my wisdom at all. And I ended up getting kicked out of the house, and I was kind of on my own for a while, and I started experiencing a peace of mind that I had not experienced before in my marriage. And at one point, my wife decided that she wanted me back. And all of a sudden, I was in a quandary because I was experiencing this incredible peace. And there were a lot of things about my marriage that just seemed to produce tension a lot. And I started doing what many of us do. We go into our heads and we try to figure it out. I was trying to weigh out. I know the thing that I should do is go back to my marriage because that's what is the right thing for what society expects and all this kind of stuff. And on the other hand, I was experiencing such peace that I didn't actually know whether I'd be able to keep experiencing if I was there. And I loved that. So what did I do? I went to Gabriela. She could solve it for me. So I said, I told her, I don't know what to do. I explained the whole situation. I don't know what to do. And she said something to me that has always stuck with me forever since that time. She said, wait for clarity. Now what that means is that all of this stuff that I was holding in my head, that I was trying to figure out, was going to be worthless. And if I didn't get a new insight, a new thought bubbling up from within, then if I were going to take action on any of the things that I was going to do, it wouldn't have worked. So this idea of wait for clarity, as soon as she said that to me, I relaxed. I was in like a horrible state before, a clenched mind. I relaxed, and it took a while. It took a long time to hear clarity. But I knew that I couldn't make a move unless I heard clarity. And so 2.5 months later, I heard, you can't go back. That relationship has run its course. It was beautiful in many ways, and it's now time for you to move on. And I heard that crystal clear. And in that moment, I just knew what to do. And if it wasn't for that statement, wait for clarity, I don't know what I would have done. Thank you, Gab.
You're welcome. I remember that conversation because it shook me. I had an opinion. I did. I had an opinion. You know, and sometimes we listen to people and we have opinions, right? Based on whatever. And it was, as I was deep listening to you and being an empty vessel, you know, that's what I heard, crystal clear. It's just like, wait for clarity.
Wow, you know where we were? We were at Sid Banks' 70th birthday party or something like that on Salt Spring.
Yep. So I think, you know, it's so cool to have an opinion about something, but listen beyond that.
But here's the amazing thing. Clarity is always there. It's always there, even when we don't think that it is. It's just, as Sid would say, one thought away. We just don't know when it's coming, but it's there. And the answer to any crisis is there. It's within the universal energy that's the intelligence behind life. The answer is there. We just have to really deeply, deeply listen to it within ourselves. And that's the way out of a crisis. The way out in the most, in the way that serves us the best.
So as we were reflecting, and as I was reflecting just individually, one of the many gifts that I've gotten is this idea of realizing what life is made up. What's the ingredient of life? And realizing that the ingredient of life is energy and intelligence that lifts us and that forms us. Transcends situations and transcends feelings and transcends difficult circumstances. I love that I have a sense of that in my soul. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you about this is because I know that sometimes the world can look scary, you know, and frightening. And we can get crunchy in our heads, you know, and go like, oh my God, I don't know about this, right? But whether it's an event, whether it's a personal circumstance, divinity sees us through. And you get to see that you can feel intensely, you can feel lost intensely, or you can feel fear intensely, or you can feel anxiety intensely. And that's not going to break you.
And it's just the three principles in action. That's all it is.
So I think it's our hope that through these examples are not unique. You know, I am sure that every one of you have an experience and a circumstance that you've gone through that is quite intense as well.
And if you haven't, you will.
Give them hope. Give them hope. And it's just nice to know, you know, that even when you think you're going to crack, you don't. Because your most essential ingredient is powerful and beautiful, and it will see you through. That's all I have.
Do we have time for like one more story or not?
Ooh.
I got it. Probably not. Okay. Well, I just want to say that this is a story about you. So, Gabriela's husband, Will, at one time, I think it was like he had to get heart surgery or something to that effect. And Gabriela was in a position where she might lose him. And you were kind of in panic mode about it.
I was freaking out completely. Yes.
And do you remember what you said? Do you remember what happened to you, what you said that calmed you down?
Yeah. My husband is lovely. I adore him. He's fun. He cooks, you know, and I get confused.
If he didn't cook, it might have been.
I know, that would be a different story. But the fact that he cooks so well. And so, you know, he was on the table. They were going to do cardioversion, which is like where they start your heart again. You know, they put electricity through your heart. And we had this like movie moment, you know, I kiss him and he's like, oh my God, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and I come out of the room and I start like going into this space of, I don't even know what to call it. I couldn't recognize a chair or a wall or anything. And I started feeling asphyxiated, like I was asphyxiating, you know? And then from the ingredient that we're made up, I heard, remember that you knew how to smile before him. Remember that you knew how to be happy before him. And it brought me back. And it allowed me to go through the whole period with a sense of presence and fearlessness. Now, I know that I could have lost him, but what freaked me out was the possibility that because I get confused, you know, I just thought that, this happens to me a lot, I get confused and then I think, oh, he's the source of my happiness, you know? Because we have so much fun together, or he's the source of this, and as much as I love him and I don't want to lose him, it's so helpful to know that if he were to die, that he wouldn't take any part of me, because we are whole. So when I realized that in that moment, it just allowed me to be so much more of service to him, because I wasn't afraid. So that was such a beautiful gift, and it was just in time.
Do you remember what else you said? You know what else you said?
No, I don't remember.
What else you said was, what is happening now?
Oh, yes.
What is happening right now? Right now. He was alive.
Right, that's right.
Right now.
That's right. I remember that, you know, I looked over the room, and there's like a lot of doctors and a lot of things happening with him, and there was also this presence of mind that was, what is happening right now? And I remember answering, I was like, right now I'm in the hallway, and he's on the table, and he's fine, and I'm fine. So even when you think that life can get really intense, and life does get intense, right? Life continues to be a contact sport, even if you understand how it works. But knowing what we know, understanding the little or the, you know, whatever we understand, it just allows us to have a firmer foot, a firmer setting, a firmer walk. So I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.